I'm not kidding, I tried out so many note-taking methods. Pros, cons, not efficient. Bad thing about this, way too long. Math equations in LaTeX, lecture notes, electromagnetism. But the game changer changed the game. Probability and statistics, everything is connected. Stop doing things linearly. My grades have went up so much this semester. I've already had 7 midterms. The mental clarity that I have now is crazy. Let me show you guys. I was just doing a lot of work for my research. I'm reading this convoluted paper, most definitely out of my scope of knowledge, but I'm learning as I go. I'm not kidding, I tried out like 5 different types of note-taking methods for reading papers. Starting my research position, I've had to do so many paper reviews. I had to come up with a file naming system to be consistent and keep track of papers that I've read, and I've tried so many note-taking methods. Let me show you guys. Number 1 on the list, we have paper. Like research paper, literally on paper. I would highlight and write important information in the margins, this stuff. There are pros and cons to this. Pros, I felt more motivated and I felt like I was holding something more tangible when I was reading it, but that's about it. Cons, when I started to read so many papers, having to print out every paper was time-consuming, kind of a waste for the environment, and it was not portable. If I forgot to bring my paper copy out to campus one day, that would be like a barrier for me to read it during the day, because I'm like, well, if I pull up the PDF right now, I don't have the annotations that I had previously. So yeah, love to have paper copies, but it was not efficient. Number 2, I decided that I would solve my environmental and printing time issue as well as the portability, because I always have my iPad. I would have the PDF in my note-taking app, still go in and highlight, handwrite it. I would still feel like the kind of tangible, real feeling. Pros was that it was portable and I didn't have to print, that it still felt real, real handwriting it. It could sync across devices, like onto my laptop as well. Cons was that it was not efficient. Handwriting is definitely so much slower than typing. Another con was that I couldn't control F my annotation. So if I ever wanted to go back to a paper that I read a long time ago and that I made notes about, I couldn't control F search for keywords that I've written down. So moving on to number 3, we have PDFs. I would highlight, came up with my own color code. Typically I do blue for important guiding phrases for understanding the paper, technical guiding phrases for the paper, and yellow for conceptual. And then I would do red for techniques that I needed to look into or questions that I had. So eventually the red ones would turn into a blue or yellow one once I ask my supervisor or once I search stuff up. A good thing about this was that I could Command F and find things that I did. I can also annotate, either write a text in the margin or annotate it directly on here. We solved most of the issues from before, traded a little bit for the tangible aspect, but honestly, I don't mind. But the only con was that every paper was distinct, a standalone paper. It's one project or 2 projects, but I'm reading so many different papers that I eventually have to pull important information from and gather into one project. I was lacking that functionality, so I started a Google Doc. The idea was that I would have a really long doc of all the papers I read related to this specific project. I would have the PDF open on one side and the doc open on the other side, and write down just key phrases so that when I'm looking back at the paper, this is all I see. I really liked my idea of linking technical terms to my definitions section at the bottom, kind of like a glossary. Definitely headed down the right direction, but the bad thing about this was that the doc would have been way too long. Google Docs is not yet great with embedding math equations in LaTeX, so writing all those equations that appeared in the paper was fairly difficult, and the layout was completely linear, which doesn't really match the way I'm thinking in my head. I was definitely headed down the right direction though, which is why I started a Notion page. I started a table with papers that I was reading. Each entry into the table was a sub page for my summary, and this was a great idea because you can add inline equations or block equations, and I liked that it was all still in the same page, but it was like a sub-page for each paper that I was reading. So I got that like unity, but still segregating the papers that I was reading. And I also like that I could put tags in it. This paper at a high level I could see was about the data set, attention, and transformers, for example. But the final thing that I felt I was lacking was the ability to link in between papers and pages. And I did a little bit of research on it, but I couldn't figure out how to link like a single word across multiple pages. Like there probably is a way to do it, but that involved creating a new Notion page for each definition, which seemed very tedious to me, which is why today I just spent like 5 hours setting up my obsidian page, and I really like it. This is still in the making. I've only been working on this today for a few hours. I made an obsidian vault called machine learning that I'm going to dedicate my research and learning to. It is a little bit of a learning curve because this is written in Markdown. Bolding is technically 2 asterisks and headings kind of this, but once you get used to it, it is very efficient. I started with the vault, and then I made a few papers for the different projects that I'm doing, as well as this whole dictionary. As I was reading my paper, I came across many terms and techniques that I did not know. Also, in its like related sources, it referenced a different paper that I was also going to be reading. So linking between pages is so nice. What is a prior? So you can open this link in my dictionary. So dictionary is kind of my folder for technical terms that I might not be familiar with, kind of separated all of the categories for all the terms as I went through the paper, created more terms. All of these concepts are interconnected, so it's not just like a simple, this paper talks about one definition and it ends there. No, it keeps going. This definition is based on this previous definition, which is based on another, method. It's all really deeply connected. What I realized was so important was that to truly learn, you can't work linearly. You can't work top down because that's just not how our brains are built. I need to talk about how I've changed my note-taking methods because my grades have went up so much this semester. I won't say that it's entirely because of my new note-taking method. I do think that my previous semester courses were definitely harder, but now my method for note-taking in my classes is, for example, let me take my probability and statistics class. I still go linearly in my lecture notes. So these are just the slides that I downloaded and annotated as the professor went by. If my class doesn't have slides, then I'll just take notes. Like for example, electromagnetism, I just take notes by hand, but it's all linearly. It goes from top down chronologically. But the game changer, I was making connections, really valuable connections, and also reviewing by making mind maps. You still have to go to lecture, take notes, do practice problems, but when you're reviewing for exams, mind maps change the game. As I'm summarizing important concepts and topics, the black text with gray highlight, those are kind of bigger topics. Within those, there are subsections. It's really important. So in probability and statistics, one of the key things we talk about is the concept of independence. And before making this map, I just recall hearing the word independence quite a bit throughout lectures. My prof would mention it, but I didn't formally understand what it was connected to. So when I was going through, every time I saw the word independence, I could link it between concepts. So independence for events, in conditional rules and product rules, and it also appears in joint distributions. That's like a test. This is also connected to covariance. So everything is connected. That is the main point that I'm trying to make here, to stop doing things linearly. Our world is not linear. Our brains are not linear. We learn best with connections. So far, I've already had like 7 midterms. They've all gone pretty well because the mental clarity that I have now versus if I didn't make mind maps is crazy. Basically, imagine how you recall information, but actually on paper. Otherwise, I'm quite tired now. I don't think I will be working anymore. My brain is a little bit fried. I'm gonna go over to my friend's apartment because work-life balance is important, and also productivity is more important than being busy. That is a crucial concept that I also learned in university because hustle culture and when I was in high school, I got this entirely wrong notion that if you're always busy, even if you're acting like you're busy, that means you're productive. No, that is wrong. Productivity is defined by how much you get out of the time that you spent on it, not the time that you spend half working, right? Okay, more on productivity later. I feel like productivity, same with machine learning, like all these words are just buzzwords that are thrown around now, but when you really think about what they mean, there's so much value to what it actually is, like when you break it down, define it, and really think about it. Okay, talk to you guys later.